The hardest people to lead are volunteers. You can lead a team if they are getting paid because you have the advantage. But people that are not getting paid are hard to lead, even in a church.
Is there a particular habit or personal discipline that you've been practicing all your life?
It's a mixture of three habits: prayer, meditation, and reflection. Probably the hardest and most relevant to me is to be a servant leader. Somebody that leads with authority, with an iron fist, and do not know how to lead patiently and coach their people are afraid.
Insecure leaders are threatened. They feel threatened when somebody is exerting better results than them. And that's where the arrogance can come. Ooh, that's dangerous.
It's very dangerous because blinded and thinking, oh, I know. And you might, but often, no.
Hey, Masterpiece Makers. Joining me on the show today, please welcome Armando Contreras Galarza. Hello, Armando.
Hey there. Good to see you, Norbert.
So good to have you here. And
thanks for having me.
It's an honor. It's an honor. Guys, Armando has his own podcast. It's full of amazing things there, but we can talk about it later. We'll go directly into our topic. My first question would be, Armando, you spent decades serving as a pastor before stepping fully into coaching leaders and entrepreneurs. Can you walk us through that journey and what prompted the shift? And how did your experience in ministry shape the kind of a coach you are today?
Oh my goodness. Beginning heavy duty with the first question. All right, that's good.
Yeah.
As you know, we spoke off camera a few days ago. I'm a pastor. That's my calling and my trade, if I can say that. Can I say that? I worked for over about 25 years, 26 years, something like that, leading different churches, planting churches. I am more of a church planter than a traditional pastor. Of course, the very last church I started, after that, I led that church for about 14 years. So I guess I was a traditional pastor in a sense, right? At the end of my pastor career. Well, I don't think it has come to an end, but
yeah.
Maybe in the future, I will go back to that. But going back to your question, that very last church in Germany, and that's the reason I came to Germany, because long story short, people contacted me and wanted to start a Spanish-speaking church in Hanover, in the city of Hanover. There's a huge population of Spanish-speaking people between Latin Americans and Spaniards, right? So they wanted to start as a ministry among that population, and that's the reason I came. It was a very interesting people, a church, in the sense that it was a speaking Spanish church that eventually turned out to be an international church, bilingual, German, Spanish. But a lot of the members of the church were university students, sometimes guest workers, for example, from Mexico or other Latin American countries, or people that were married to Germans. The membership fluctuated very often, which means that the financial aspect of the church was always an issue, right? Because while the church demanded a full-time pastor, finances, sometimes they were high, sometimes they were low. And I'm married, my wife is German, and back then my 4 kids were little and they were growing. So we were really confronted with that situation. So we had to come to a decision back then. We, of course, talking to the leadership in the church, talking to the members of the church, and we had to take a very hard decision, to make a very hard decision, and that was to close the church, which we did. We gave her to that particular local congregation a decent burial, so to speak.
Wow.
It was very hard because they were not just members of a church, and I wasn't just part of that church. They were my friends as well. We were very close. We shared a lot of things, hardships and joyful moments. We ate together. We did a lot together. So it was a very hard thing. Even now, when I think about it, even now it's hard because I really enjoy that particular ministry. But going back to your question, when we closed the church, of course, I was confronted with, okay, what now?
Yeah.
What do I do now? And so I was unemployed for a while there. We tried Mexico for about half a year, not quite, but for about half a year, my wife and I
Oh
and the
wow! So
kids.
you went back to Mexico for half a year.
The idea was to stay there. It didn't work as planned, and we had to come back. And while working in Mexico, that was my introduction to coaching because I was working with a coaching company and doing some training for leadership training, team building training, and other trainings that were under my specialty, so to speak. Because as a pastor, a lot of what a pastor does is that, right? A
Yeah.
lot of counseling, a lot of coaching, really, spiritual coaching or spiritual counseling, building teams, leading. And the hardest, this is the thing, people don't realize that the hardest people to lead are volunteers. You know,
That is true.
you can lead a team if they are getting paid because you have
Mm.
the advantage, so to speak. But people that are not getting paid are hard to lead, even in a church. Yeah. My whole life, 25 years, leading volunteers, building things, training, doing leadership training, and so on and so forth. So it was like a perfect match. So this company hired me to do some specific trainings, specific leadership
Mm.
training, team building trainings, ethics, and things like that, right? But then we came back to Germany, and during that period, I didn't know what to do in Germany because of many different factors. I wasn't able to join or to go back to that what I
Mm.
began in Mexico. And eventually, a job coach here in Germany told me one day, it was like an inspiration
Mm.
moment in his head, I think. So, hey, hold on, you can do what I do. So, like, yeah, what do you mean? So, one thing led to another. I began to send applications to different coaching companies here in Germany. And in Germany, it's a little harder than in the States or Latin America, right? Because you have to have a very specific paper, a very specific
Yeah.
study, and
Mm.
this and that, right? But this company gave me the chance. They were impressed with my career, if I can,
With your background.
humbly say
Yeah.
so. They were
Yeah.
impressed with my, how do you call that? Lebenslauf, my
Yeah.
curriculum vitae,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And they give me a chance. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning from that to that, what I do right now.
Oh wow, that's really inspiring because I have observed a lot of people in ministry cross also coaching,
Mhm.
and they're very good at it because, of course, because it's all about people, and
It's all about people.
it's natural, right? It doesn't take much. You don't have to like act or put on
No,
a show because it just naturally happens. The pastoral heart is just translating into that leadership coaching section. Armando, like what you just shared to me is like really
I, I, I
powerful.
I just remember those days because it was a hard period
Mm,
coming back from Mexico to Germany. But when I got into it, of course, I picked up some, I have university studies and so on and so
mm,
forth. But then I picked up some certifications and extra training to qualify
mm.
myself, of course. It was very, or it is very natural because it's all about people, right? It's all about helping
Yeah.
people get better at what they do or who they are and so on and so forth. So you're right on that one. I don't know how many, I haven't count how many hours I've been doing counseling or coaching
Yeah. That
during 25 years. So like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, thousands or hundreds. I don't
more
know.
yeah, more than they say you need to do 10,000 hours to be good at something, and like probably it's more than that when it comes to counseling and coaching. When you look back on those days, Armando, especially from being in the pulpit into different boardrooms and that transition, is there a particular habit or personal discipline that you've been practicing all your life that is still there until now that has helped you go through that entire transition?
I think it's a mixture of
Hmm.
three maybe habits that are closely related: prayer, meditation, and reflection.
Oh.
Just reflecting. And many people might say they are the same. We can get into it. But yeah, my prayer life is important
Hmm.
just to be in touch with my creator, with my God, to help me go through difficult times and, of course, during good times, because good times are equally dangerous as hard
Yeah.
times.
Yes.
The character of people is tested during those times as well. But yeah, prayer is important, of course. And meditation and reflection might be synonymous, those two. But yeah, just taking the time to really think through things. There was a time in life when I wasn't that patient and that thorough and that disciplined. But the hard knocks of life made me realize how important that is, just to be
Well,
quiet. Even today, I so much appreciate. I'm very social. I like to be with people. I like socializing, but I protect my quiet time so much.
wow.
Just to be alone. Yeah.
That's very powerful. In the advent of all the distraction that we're in and in the fast pace of life, you actually protect the sanctity of your quiet time.
Yeah.
That's very good. And in connection to this particular discipline of yours, is there also, because I can see the transition of how they align for sure, ministry and then coaching and leadership. But is there also like any kind of leadership principle that or scripture perhaps, that continues to shape how you lead and serve today? That's what guided you
Yeah.
all this time.
Probably the hardest and most relevant to me is to be a servant leader, the aspect of serving. As ministry, the word ministry means to be a servant, the act of serving.
Yeah.
And we often forget about that. A pastor or a leader is often put on a pedestal, right? Politicians, CEOs, and so on and so forth, right? Religious figures and so on and so forth. But I believe that the main purpose of leadership is to serve, is to guide, of course. We guide, we teach, we coach, we do a lot of things. But if service is not at the core of what we do, I think we missed the boat. It's dangerous. It could be dangerous. You can wreck life. I mean, I know of people that go scared. I've coached people that go scared to work because they are afraid of their leadership.
Crazy.
Yeah, people that physically
Have physical anxiety and
the stomach hurts, maybe, and many different other diarrhea and panic attacks and so on and so forth. Like, why? I wonder why do people, and I think I know why. I think a lot of people that do not have a servant heart, they are afraid. Yeah. Somebody that leads with authority, with a heart, an iron fist, and do not know how to lead patiently and coach their people, usually are people that are afraid.
Yeah.
And they do not know. And so the only strategy or the only tool they have to do it is be hard.
Yeah.
So I think to learn to be a servant leader is so important.
You just nailed it there. The leadership principle of servanthood and being a servant leader is something that we see in Jesus so much that he's been demonstrating a lot in his whole entire life. A lot of our masterpiece makers, probably our listeners, our own tribe, think about this. And I think sometimes it's not easy to see servant leadership in action when you're in a business setting. And in church, I think it's a little bit easy. I don't know.
You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised.
Okay. Years ago, I started a personal journey to help provide professional creative communication solutions to brands born out of faith and big dreams, but running on limited resources. Before finding my true calling in ministry, I was an advertising professional, and I always felt frustrated whenever a great idea, product, service, or community initiative didn't take off simply because branding wasn't a priority. I've seen too many faith-oriented entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders make this mistake because they don't have access to professional creative services, or they are put off by the high cost and consumerist approach. I decided to use my experiences in mainstream advertising and in ministry to bridge the gap. The result is a 6-module branding course that can help transform brands, effectively tell their stories, reach their audience, and help them achieve their goals. Teaching this to business owners and leaders, I've seen it transform confusing concepts into real brands that cut through the noise and make real everyday impact. I believe that brands can be a blessing to the world, solving problems and easing burdens, fueled by passion and driven by purpose. That is what we aim to do with Masterpiece Kingdom Brands. If this resonates with you and you're ready to uncover your Kingdom brand, let's connect. Sign up for the Masterpiece Kingdom Brand Building course today. What you've said, you've experienced people who are really having those physical attacks and anxieties and panic attacks when they go to their work because
Right.
they're just really scared of their leadership. And you have seen this people and leaders in different fields, not just ministry, but in corporate setting. What are the patterns that you have noticed in people who truly thrive in leadership and those who are easily burning out? Is there some signs or patterns that you've observed all these years from somebody who is, okay, this guy, he's going to be a good leader, and this one, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to give a quality as in bad, but not optimal. I guess bad leaders. Yeah, I think it applies. I think there are signs. And I think that the tendency to be a boss, to tell people, do this, do that. And of course, as leaders, we have to delegate. We have to guide and be sure of what has to be done, right? But there are ways and there are ways to do it, right? That's what I mean by that. People have the tendency of being better and know better than in this type of arrogance. I think that's a huge sign. That team will be eventually destroyed, or maybe some goals will be not achieved. So I think that's a big problem. And not to be mistaken with assurance. I think often being sure is confused with arrogance. And I think there is a difference. There is a huge difference between being sure and confident. That's one thing. And I think leaders must be confident.
Can you give us a little example on, because I get what you mean. It's a fine line with being the boss and leader who's really confident and assuring, and the one that you're saying that is
Arrogant.
a little arrogant. Can you give an example of how that actually looks like?
Sometimes you have to read between the lines, and there are like nuances to the way people speak and to the way people act, right? But for example, you as a leader, you can be confident on what you know, on who you are, because that means you know your limits as well. You know how far you can go. And a good leader, usually, a confident leader, usually will surround himself or herself with people that are better at some things. A leader is not someone that knows everything. A leader usually knows how to guide, and therefore is very confident in himself or herself to like, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to find the best person for
For this job.
for this job. I'm not threatened. I'm not afraid. And delegate. Let it go. Okay, you are in charge. Take care. We are pursuing, because your purpose is bring the whole thing towards the goal, what you want to do. This is one example, right? An arrogant person is someone, on the contrary, do not know where the limits, his or her own limits are.
Oh, that's dangerous.
It's very dangerous because you are blinded and thinking, oh, I know. And you might, but often, no, you don't and you can't. But you are under the impression that you can and you know.
Wow. That's true. I love what you said. Insecure leaders are threatened. They feel threatened when somebody is probably shining on something or exerting better results than them. And that's where the arrogance can come. Ooh, that's dangerous. And a lot of our listeners are leaders and running their own companies, or even just the solopreneurs listening to us. That must be really something that we have to work in our hearts. And of course, whether you're starting out or pivoting in your business, in whatever season in your business, Masterpiece Makers, Armando, my question would be, like, from your perspective, what are the few small but strategic habits that our listeners can implement today that could make a real difference in the long run? You said earlier that your discipline on your prayer life, your meditation, your reflection has really helped you in the success that you are in today. What could be your practical suggestions for our listeners? These small things, because I know sometimes it's a little bit hard to say when you like prayer life. Not everybody could then jump into that.
You have to begin with you. If you are leading, even if you are not, but you start always with you,
Mm.
working with you. Meaning, in this case, very small things. You have to take care of yourself. You have to sleep well. You have to eat well. You have to be active, right? Physically active. You have to be intellectually challenged, whether that is reading a book, whether that is doing I don't know, being part of a mastermind where you are sitting on the back and
Mm.
taking from others, for example, being challenged. Serve. That's another thing that is often forgotten. I think we have to give because if we are often on the pedestal, on top,
Mm-hmm.
directing and might be everything fine and good, not a big
Yeah.
deal, but it's often dangerous because you lose a sense of what is happening, of reality, because you are in your pinnacle up there, right?
Mm.
So service helps you come down, be among the mortals, so to speak, be among the common people, so to speak. And so service is a good thing. Those little things are very important because you will be surprised how much value people give to being productive, being doing productive. Are you really producing? Are you really being effective? I don't know. It depends. It varies from person to person. But I think these habits will help you stay healthy
Mm-hmm.
mentally and physically because you are not good for anyone if you are sick, if you burnt out, if you
Yeah.
are short tempered, if you are not
Mm.
creative, if you cannot think fast, if you are not fair, and so on and so forth. And those are symptoms of something that is not happening in your personal life. So you have to take care of your own life. And sometimes that means hiring a coach or being part of a mastermind, where you have to be coach.
Yeah, because these things develop the good habits that we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are situations when you put in yourself that help because eventually you become more accountable to people and you get be
That's
more
a good one.
aware.
Accountability. Yeah.
Yeah. You're more aware of your blind spots because in a mastermind, you will see your blind spots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's so good. That's really good. Armando, I want to wrap our conversation today with this one final question, and I think maybe you can really speak into it. A lot of our masterpiece makers listening to us are business leaders, organization, nonprofit leaders, or creative professionals who are starting their own business. And I am very sure that at some point we have picked up bad habits along the way. My question would be what would be the first step to undo a bad habit
Mm,
and what would be your suggestion to if you can if it's even possible how can we replace that with a good habit and how do
right.
you actually do that?
The key word here is tiny. And I'm a certified tiny habits coach as well. And one key aspect of that is that you have to begin really small. So it's a huge process, but which begins with knowing your values,
Mm.
defining your values, and that itself is a huge process. But if you can do one thing today, it's just think about the one thing that can make a big difference in your life, whatever that might be. Whether there is starting a new business, getting new leads, losing weight. Think about whatever you want to, a goal, an aspiration that you want to achieve, right? Personal or professional. So think about that and then think about, okay, what can I do today that could make a huge difference, a huge impact in my life? Don't think about breaking a bad habit. Think about
Mm.
improving something, right? It can be in that area, if, in that area where you have that bad habit. Think about something that can replace that. And then break it down. Break it down. Okay, what can I do today that will not cost me a lot of time, that will not cost me a lot of effort, but that I can do, that I can experience victory today? Whatever that may be. Let me use the example of you want to get fit,
Yeah.
but the principle applies to anything you want to achieve, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you want to get fit. You probably won't be able to go for a 5 mile run right now at this very moment in life, right? Break it down. What if you go just around the block or maybe just to the corner and back? That's it. Get into the habit. But that's the one victory that you can achieve today that goes against being lazy in this case. So just one little thing that you can do today that will get you going, that will get you on track towards that goal that you want to achieve.
Wow. Wow. That is so good. One tiny habit can have a huge impact if you do it consistently.
Yeah, it
That's
will compound.
amazing.
It will compound.
Compound interest. Wow. Armando, how can our masterpiece makers get hold of you if they want to learn more about developing these tiny habits that you've been talking about? And if they want to connect with you, where can they find you? And yeah, please invite our listeners.
I have my podcast is in YouTube, so I will give you my link and Charla de Vida, and but I will give you the link. You will find it, or Norbert will include it.
Of
And
course.
you can also find me in the LinkedIn and in X, former Twitter.
Yes. Oh, come on. So, Masterpiece Makers, we'll put all the good stuff there in our description and in our show notes. And yes, Armando, it has been amazing. Now I am thinking about what the tiny habits I need to apply for myself. And I'm sure, Masterpiece Maker, you are also challenged. And we really pray that you find, as what Armando said, find that tiny habit that you can develop that has huge impact for your long term success. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am your host. And remember, on this show, we are really obsessed in building your faith and inspiring your business. Till the next episode of the Making a Masterpiece podcast. See you then.